We can run or we can stay. We can fight or we can flight. Fight doesn't mean a physical altercation. Many times fight just means taking a positive step forward. Flight doesn't necessarily mean that you run away. It means that you allow yourself to accept what is put before you without taking a step forward to change the situation that you've been in. So you can fight in so many ways without even picking up a weapon. Actually, I will modify my statement. We need to learn how to fight with the most powerful weapon that we have. Other than God, we need to learn how to fight with our minds. We need to learn how to fight with our hearts. Because when we learn to fight with those things, that's when we can learn how to move forward and make changes together. When it comes to addressing issues related to social injustice, we should realize that we are more powerful when we use our minds to fight together rather than when we use our hands to battle and attempt to fight alone. When we seek physical retaliation as a means to fight, that's something that's so short-term. Yet when we use our minds to fight, especially as a community, we create a more sustainable fight and we create a more formidable opponent against our enemy who's looking to keep us down. So we at Zadik, we choose to fight. We choose to take step forward regardless of the pacifist mindset that people have tried to put before us. We choose to reach out to those who want an outlet to begin to build together. We choose to stand in the face of issues that hold us back instead of being defeated by those issues. We want to raise them and find solutions to address them. So I hope you're all comfortable. Get yourself relaxed, because what I would do is I would like to call up the visionary of Zadik to speak on the goals of Zadik, an individual who spent more than half his life working with different communities on setting goals of national significance. Goals such as communal cooperation, financial empowerment, and educational enlightenment through the highlighting the modern history and how we have been impacted by it. So please just give a big round of applause as I bring before you Chief Naphtali, BINAH, Yisrael, hallelujah.
First and foremost, giving all honor to God for his blessings and his mercy, allowing us to be here this day. Thanking you for coming out, getting here safely. Thank you to Mozart for that beautiful introduction regarding Zadik. So first I wanted to get everybody to understand what Zadik is. Throughout the years, we usually don't have forums where we can do the best work we need to do. And oftentimes, we're muddled down with day-to-day issues. Some of us of different religious denominations won't work with other people of other denominations. But like Malcolm said, we're not being oppressed because of our religious status. We're being oppressed because we're black. And oftentimes, we don't think in a vein to work with other people to find solutions to our common problems. So as Zadik, we want to address some specific issues. Number one is service. I think we often lose the sight of the fact that we're no good as individuals unless we know how to do good by other people. This is the reason why God put us on this earth, not to be individuals, but to be a people that know how to have a collective response to the issues that we deal with each and every day. Outreach. Our people are suffering. A lot of us have the answer. A lot of us have the answer towards decency, towards goodness, towards righteousness. A lot of us are fathers, mothers. And at one time in our culture, regardless of whether you had a mother and a father, there was somebody that always stepped in as a surrogate to help raise you. Yeah. That has to come back to us. The caring of our community has to come back. The loving and understanding of our community has to come back. And we have to look at the things that damage a lot of us to help that healing process. Financial empowerment, economic solutions. So, a lot of us have good ideas. We just don't have the means. We don't have the way to make our ideas flourish, to bring certain things into fruition. And we want to make sure that we do things as an organization to make sure that these ideas come to fruition. You know, Steve Jobs is Steve Jobs because somebody believed in Steve Jobs. What's the head of Microsoft? I forgot his name. Bill Gates. He's Bill Gates because somebody believed in him. Somebody invested in him. They were able to drop out of college and still sustain the ideas that they have. And you may not know it, but right in the projects, on the streets, in the gutters, there are brilliant minds out there, but nobody's investing in those minds. So we have to begin to invest in those minds. Part of what I do wherever I go, in Israel, in a lot of communities and whatever, I always ask, what are you doing? And what I mean by that is, what's your plans? What are you doing as far as school? You have an aim, you have a goal. Because if nobody asks you, you want to enunciate it, you won't even think about it. And the work that I do, I work with a lot of people who, they're looking for work, and I ask them, well, what's your plan for yourself? And they don't have any because nobody ever brought that to them. They've been living their life for 16, 21 years, 25 years, and nobody said, what are you going to be when you grow up? How can I help you get there? And this is the difference between a lot of people in our community. A lot of people in the black community, they're taught to fend for themselves. They're taught to get a welfare case or to get your food stamps, and this is how you're going to survive. As opposed to, what's your plan for your life? What's your plan to invest in yourself? To make sure that you become the best that you can be. Right. We want to make sure that we take a look at those things. So onto these current resume, because we just don't want to say, okay, this is what we want to do. We have made some strides. We have lecture series like this where we brought out different issues concerning the racial wealth gap. We brought out certain issues concerning the history of Jim Crow and mass incarceration. We did lecture series on those. We've also, every year we do a Black Business Expo where we gather businesses to come and sell whatever business they have and give them a level of exposure. We've also done coat drives for hurricane victims in the West Indies. Coat drives and supply drives for the hurricane victims in the West Indies. And oftentimes we just do outings for the people. We rented out a theater so we can see, I forgot the name of the movie.
Birth of a Nation.
Birth of a Nation. The original Birth of a Nation was a racist movie, as it was renamed regarding the revolution, the slave rebellion in Hampton, Virginia. And we rented it out so that the community could come together and see it as a whole. So we want to continue those things. So whatever donation you give, those are the things that the donations that you provide us go to the maintainers of the website, different events, and we also want to know what ideas you have that you can give to us, and you can work with us on bringing to fruition, because we need all the help we can get, and we need all of your help. So with that, I hope you got something out of what was brought forth. I hope you're able to stay in contact with us. Please provide us with your contact information, because we need it for the future ventures that we're doing, and also we want to know what ideas you have that we can bring forth again. So is everybody good today?
Yes.
Well, I know it's cold. I'm a little chilly. I don't want to chill like the heat, but it's going to get hot here in a second. So in founding Zadik, a lot of the issues that we wanted to address are the community issues that face everybody, all our people as a whole. So Maury came together and said, he wanted to focus something on social justice, because there are specific issues that a lot of us, especially living in New York, are dealing with every day.
Right.
So the first one we're going to talk about today is police brutality. So how many have you been a victim or saw a victim or heard of a victim of police brutality? I know I have. I know I've been thrown against the wall a couple of times. I've been stopped and frisked.
Yes.
A lot of people have been victimized by this nature. So to define police brutality or police violence is legally defined as a civil rights violation wherein officers exercise undue or excessive force against a civilian. This includes, but is not limited to, physical, verbal harassment, physical or mental injury, property damage, and death. So I know we've seen an escalation of police deaths in the past couple of years, but I want you to clearly understand something. The police have been killing black people for a very long time.
That's right.
The technology, the advancement of the technology allows it to be exposed at a more increasing rate. But back to what this brutality is. It's not just the death, it's also the physical damage that they do, the mental injury imposed upon people. Sometimes you're locked in a cell without contact with family, without contact with lawyer, without food, like they did to the Central Park Five. When you're deprived, it does something to you mentally, physically, and spiritually. So you will confess to things that you didn't even do because you just want to get out. Verbal harassment. There have been police that have come to your neighborhood and called you nigger, called you black, BI, whatever the case may be. They have done these things. They have done these things in oppression of your community. So I want you to clearly understand that it's just not about physical. I know one of the biggest images we see of physical violence by police was the Rodney King incident, where we all saw because of a camera, him being beat. But this brutality is happening in many different forms, and we all have to take issue with these different forms that the brutality is taking, that the brutality is taking place. So policing in America has taken different forms since its founding in this nation, but let's focus on the origin of policing of black people in America. The reason why is because you always have some type of form of police. You had bounty hunters, you had sheriffs, you had different police that just protected the rights and the wealth of the rich. But we want to talk about how the systemic and institutional racism translated into what we see now in our current police state. In the United States of America, it is common for marginalized groups to perceive the police as oppressors rather than protectors or enforcers of the law. Right. Due to the statistical disproportionate number of minority incarcerations. Outside of disproportionate mass incarceration, here are some more reasons why we tend to hold this view. And we look at, by culture, the police as an oppressive force. We don't see them as friends. Matter of fact, a lot of times when we get into stuff, we tend not to call the police because we believe that the police will make the situation worse.
Right.
We even have a code. It's not the best code in the world, but we have this code, don't snitch.
Right.
In our community. Right? Because we don't believe in telling. Don't agree with that code. Somebody's beating on you, call cops. But the reason why is because there's always been a lack of trust between the black community and the police. So a lot of what I'm going to read now comes from an article, and the reason why I'm going to read the article because the person that wrote the article is very precise in a lot of the things that I've already researched and want to express. So it's kind of surmised in what she's saying. So the following statements are from an article entitled "The Racist Roots of American Policing, from Slave Patrols to Traffic Stops." The author's name is Connie Hassett Walker, Associate Professor of Criminal Justice at King University. Please look up the article because I'm not reading the entire article, I'm just reading excerpt from the article, but the article is very poignant to what is being said right now, or to the topic of discussion. Ms. Hassett Walker states, "I'm a criminal justice researcher who often focuses on issues of race, class, and crime. Through my research and from teaching a course on diversity and criminal justice, I have come to see how the roots of racism in American policing, first planted centuries ago, have not been fully purged." Now what she's trying to say is that how the whole institution with black policing started hasn't really changed. The institution is still basically the same. So we want to go into the origins of how this current state of policing, especially minorities, came about. In the article segment entitled Slave Patrols, Ms. Hassett Walker Against States, there are two historical narratives about the origins of American law enforcement. Policing in the southern slave-holding states had roots in slave patrols, squadrons made up of white volunteers empowered to use vigilante tactics to enforce laws related to slavery. A slave couldn't walk outside the plantation without a pass. Slave couldn't be too far from the plantation. Slave had to have papers. Slave had to have, some states, if you were not belonging to somebody, then it was illegal for you to be free. In Alabama, it was illegal to you be free and black. They located and returned enslaved people who had escaped, crushed uprising led by enslaved people, and punished enslaved workers found or believed to have violated plantation rules. First slave patrols arose in South Carolina in the early 1700s. As University of Georgia social work professor Michael A. Robinson has written, by the time John Adams became the second U.S. president, every state that had not yet abolished slavery had slave patrols. Members of slave patrols could forcefully enter anyone's home, sounds familiar, regardless of their race or ethnicity, based on suspicion that they were sheltering people who had escaped bondage. The more commonly known precursors to modern law enforcement were centralized municipal police departments that began to form in the early 19th century, beginning in places like Boston and soon cropping up in New York City, Albany, Chicago, Philadelphia, and elsewhere. Now these were like the major northern cities, right? Let's see what they say about these guys. The first police forces were overwhelmingly white, male, and more focused on responding to disorder than crime. As Eastern Kentucky University criminologist Gary Potter explains, officers were expected to control a dangerous underclass. It sounds similar to that talk of us being super predators, right?
Right.
That included African Americans, immigrants, and the poor. Through the early 20th century, there were few standards for hiring or training officers. So therefore, if you wanted to become a police, regardless of what the training was, if there was no training, you just became a police officer. Police corruption and violence, particularly against vulnerable people, were commonplace during the early 1900s. Additionally, the few African Americans who joined police forces were often assigned to black neighborhoods and faced discrimination on the job. In my opinion, these factors, controlling disorder, lack of adequate police training, lack of non-white officers, and slave patrol origins are among the forerunners of modern-day police brutality against African Americans. For the past 5 decades, the federal government has forbidden the use of racist regulations at the state and local level, yet people of color are still more likely to be killed by the police than whites. Some recent data. The Washington Post tracks the number of African Americans killed by police, by race, gender, and other characteristics. The newspaper's database indicates that 229 out of 992 of those who died that way in 2018, 23% of the total were black, even though we make up only 12 to 13% of the population in this country. Policing's institutional racism of decades and centuries ago still matters because policing culture has not changed as much as it could. For many African Americans, law enforcement represents the legacy of reinforced inequality and the injustice system and resistance to advancing. For most of us, when we see police, we see the physical oppression of the government, even under pressure from the civil rights movement and its legacy. In addition, the police disproportionately target black drivers. When a Stanford University research team analyzed data collected between 2011 and 2017 from nearly 100 million traffic stops to look for evidence of systematic racial profiling, they found that black drivers were more likely to be pulled over and to have their car searched than white drivers. LL Cool J made a song about this called Illegal Search.
Right.
You had another audience that made driving dirty.
Right.
Because this is a common experience amongst our people. How did Sandra Bland get stopped? Traffic stop. They also found that the percentage of black drivers being stopped by police dropped after dark when the driver's complexion is harder to see from outside the vehicle. The persistence of racially biased policing means that unless American policy reckons with its racist roots, it is likely to keep repeating the mistakes of the past. This will hinder police from fully protecting and serving the entire public. So what is being stated? There has been no systematic change from the way they have used us or the way they policed us when we were slaves to the way they police us today. Why? Because the structure for them works. I wanted to talk a little bit about mass incarceration and the prison industrial complex. The reason why you have nothing happening concerning police brutality in this country the way it needs to is because a beast is being fed. When you have a mass incarceration policy, when you have a prison industrial complex, that means money is being made. That means you're incentivized to grab up people at will so that corporations can make billions and millions of dollars. So you probably won't stop the stop and frisk thing. You probably won't stop the abuse of citizens of color because it makes money. And once you have money behind the principle of justice, it's no longer justice. It's about getting paper, not about the morality of this country. So, sad to say, America has stopped fighting crime a long time ago. America is about reintroducing the slave model, modern day, back into existence to help feed private corporations. So, some solutions. In essence, the solution to fixing police brutality is to break down the current police model. That may not happen that soon, but what can we do as a people to protect ourselves? We have to teach, especially black men, how to deal with police confrontation. It's very important. It's very important that if you confront the police and the police is antagonizing you, stay silent. Don't feed into the anger that they're trying to provide because they're trying to find a reason to lock you up. They're trying to find a reason to abuse you. If you're a minor, make sure that you get your phone call and make sure that you call your parents. Make sure the first thing that you do is call your parents and answer no questions without your parents present. When you confront a police officer, get the information, get as much information as you can. They may fight with you. They may say, oh, I'm not giving you my badge number. Ask for the badge number anyway. Ask for the name of the cop that's arresting you. Know the time and the place where they're taking you. Get all the information that you can. Because a lot of times, people are being locked up and nobody knows where they are. Sandra Bland just went missing. She was locked up. The family didn't know where she was. Next thing you know, she pops up dead. This is a common occurrence. Secondly, what the community can do. You know, if a cop is harassing you and you drop his captain's name, he's not going to be too keen to bother you anymore. Know who is in charge of every precinct that is close to you. It's very important information. It's very important information to know the higher-ups of the people that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that any situation that may happen, you may be able to talk yourself out of a common ticket. Because you know that the captain at the 71st or the captain at the 77 is John Hoskins, is this person, or what have you. Attend your community board meetings. Do that. I know it seems like a waste of time, but it's just to get a familiar face present, to know who you're working with, to know who's in your community. vote. We've been talking that for a long time. But on a micro level, your voting has an impact on immediate politicians, immediate community leaders, so that when it's time to have conversations concerning this, your voice can be heard and they can bring it to the proper people. So I left some time for the community review board. They're not present. So what we're going to do is go into a brief, not a brief question and answer, it can be extended. Question and answer period for any of you who currently have questions regarding solutions or anything that was spoken about regarding police brutality, or to provide your input as well. Remember, these are not just, oh, we're going to talk to you. These are forums for us to gather information, to exchange the right information, so that we can come out here with something. So does anybody have a question at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. How can we, as a community, make sure our children are educated on how to deal with police?
Okay.
So not every child has a father in their home.
Right. I have a solution with that, and we also have somebody in law enforcement that's present. I would like him to say something. But part of the key is I've learned through other police officers how to deal with racist police. Even racist police who are black. You have to learn that because they can tell you what things you should be doing, not doing, hand movement, hand gestures, because police can arrest you because if they have a cost, and you don't want to give them a cost. So, H, do you mind providing any information on this as well?
Sure.
Can you introduce yourself and introduce your current?
Can I do it over here?
No, you can come up front. I'm good with that. Yeah. My brother H. Zadik, long-time law enforcement.
Good afternoon. I'm a New York State University police officer. I've been so for the past 20 years. I'm currently in the position of a lieutenant in New York State Police. One of the ways that we go about dealing with these type of situations is through forums like this, okay? You can request police officers to come to forums. Sometimes if we're already within the community, we can do scenario-based situations that we can actually put as mock situations that we'll put forth that can help out. One of the tools that young Chief Naphtali did bring up is something that is often done within New York City as well as within New York State as a tool to antagonize people. Some of you may be familiar with it. One aspect of it has a lot to do with just acting like you're acting up. You're not actually doing anything. Let's say, for example, I said to sit down. Sit down, but you're already sitting. Calm down, lower your voice. And you're looking at us like, you're going crazy. Why? Because you actually think that something else is transpiring. And all it is to actually create confusion.
Yes.
Because at that point in time, once you create the confusion, whether it be the person that's there that gets antagonized, or it's you as a standby that's concerned about that person that's involved in this interaction, that then once you get drawn in, your emotions become part of the equation, okay? It's a tactic, it's a tool, and especially if, let's say, it's a crowd that's involved and we're not certain, and we need to get certain key components that are not listening to get further and further away from that particular situation. If you're not listening to the initial command of, come with me, let's talk over here, and we'll take someone else over, another party on this side, we'll try any tactic that we can to actually get that to transpire, even if it means locking you up. So the simplest form of being able to lock you up in that particular premise is actually to do so by way of getting you to act disorderly in any way, okay? Disobeying a lawful command to disperse. Yes?
Isn't that coercion?
Not from our perspective. I like to call it psychological warfare.
Right.
And never think that you're not a victim of psychological warfare. I use it every day.
Hi, my name is Bill Daniel.
Nice to meet you.
And thank you all, D.C.B, for having this. This event, I've been involved in various community involvements. My mother brought me up on this prior to even coming into truth.
Right.
You know, but I just wanted to say that, I know, one, I'm gonna ask several questions. If I have to repeat them again, I will, just so I don't know. 13th Amendment is the way that's actually slavery written into the Constitution through, once you're arrested, you no longer belong to yourself, you belong to the state.
Absolutely.
And the second, well, this little bit here. When one gets pulled over, like you said, you're set up because it's psychological warfare, because one of the things is when you see the flashing lights and the sirens are created, they purposely are created, I know, to neurologically throw a person off. You get nervous, you get confused, like you said, and when you do, you may not act the way you normally do, so it is kind of like coercing you or putting you in a position to kind of violate yourself without even realizing it because you're nervous. Especially more so males than anyone else. Women, they get upset or probably if they're with their husband or their male friend or whatever, they're nervous for the man. And so it's a whole lot of confusion. There's different dynamics that go on. Can you speak to that?
Okay. One, you're absolutely right about the 13th Amendment. It is the one way that we actually give the opportunity for us to be enslaved again. Okay? The judicial process allows that by way of, again, you acting disorderly or you violating, whether it be a law or ordinance for a township. You have to remember, most police were created to actually protect property and persons, but the initial persons and property they were initially created to protect were what?
Their own.
Caucasian. Caucasian. Were business persons. And then when we realize that this is the dynamic upon which this is how we were created, the psychology of doing that and even dealing with businesses and protecting them, understand that most police municipalities still do it today. They have keys to businesses that are in the area, and when the alarm systems go off, it's not a regular routine security system. Where I work out of the state facility, both us as well as city police come as a memorandum of understanding to provide protection for that community. So now if you find yourself there by accident or in a situation, it's easy for that to escalate into any situation. So again, the scenario-based scenarios that we could actually come up with, I think that that will be one of the best vehicles that we could utilize to educate our people to dealing with that, even car stops, okay, where you remain calm, where you just know to give that certain information that's there. In our community, most times you'll see that that's one of the reasons that I've always strive to give you all PBA cards and stuff like that. It's not a get out of jail free card, but that coupled with a little bit of respect that's there does go a long way. Okay, so there are tools just like providing your name, your address, and whether it's your ID cards and knowing that that ID card with that PBA card, or in fact knowing the names of the people within your community in terms of not just the police, but also your councilman, okay? Because at certain times, if you can't get on that phone call, you can't reach your family members, to know that you can actually reach your assemblyman or your council member that's in your district is important. You know, like you, my mother and father raised me to do the same thing. So Community Board District 17, I used to deal with them quite a lot, okay? Different portions in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, I dealt with them a lot to try to keep the jails out and do petitions. It's about us putting our feet to the pavement and doing the work that's at hand. And it's not going to just take one person. There was a question in the back.
Can you speak a little bit on resisting arrest? So I'm seeing on a lot of videos where the cop is saying, quit resisting in order so we can use excessive force. So when we are in those situations, a lot of us with young kids, to try to explain to them, like, just relax. But I guess, sometimes they put you in a situation where it hurts and you're trying to readjust. Can you explain why they do that, and when they call out quit resisting, it gives them an opportunity to use more excessive force, even when you're not resisting.
It's kind of hard to answer unless we're actually looking at an actual incident, because sometimes people are still moving instead of just laying still, right? Or up against the wall, you're still pushing back. Or you're in a position where it's like, for example, when you're prone down on the floor, does everyone understand what I mean, that you're laying on your belly? And depending on how your size is, right? Sometimes if you're kind of weighty, your diaphragm compresses, your fatty deposits will compress against your diaphragm, and this is not something that's unknown. But for a long time in policing, we had this concept of as long as you can talk, you can breathe, and as long as you can breathe, that then our concept is our safety. Because we're not robots, we're not like Tron or anything else, we're husbands and wives and sons and daughters and nieces and nephews, just like this community. So a lot of times you have to understand that you're playing towards sometimes their fear. And the way that they're going to quiet their fear is that once they actually bring you into custody, that then that's when this particular cycle stops. But then sometimes it continues on because of ego problems, okay? And that's where it's, again, being silent and being quiet, but still being observant. You know, most of us do wear our names on our shirts, okay, on a uniform. And if not, when we come out, they're supposed to have a badge. And if they don't have a badge out and you get pulled over, ask for a uniformed officer to come to that scene. It's okay to call 911 again and say, I don't know, I'm being stopped by some male or some female with a gun, and please help. Sir.
One solution that I did have on there, and I do want you to talk about it a little bit more. There is, from what I found out, there is not enough de-escalation training that police officers actually have. A lot of them are taught, as you said, like protection, or they're taught a level of aggression. Subtle, but it's being translated as do what you have to do as opposed to de-escalate. And I want to have that discussion regarding de-escalation, because you may notice that police that are community minded, the first thing is to de-escalate. Even if they have to lock up everybody, they're able to de-escalate. They're able to talk people off the ledge, so to speak. And how is that different? I know the answer, but how I just want you to explain it. How is that different between people who are part of the community, working in the community as law enforcement, and people who are outside of the community and don't have an attachment to the community?
That's a good question. I'm going to answer it in two ways. One, the first part of what I'm going to say to you is, yeah, maybe the portions of yesteryear, there was a psychology of that's the only way to do policing.
Right.
And you have to understand that everything evolves, okay? Just like this concept of active shooter situations. It evolves to where there's no situation to whereby we deal with situations and yesteryear if someone had an active shooter situation, you call for a SWAT team, you call for a negotiator to de-escalate this particular situation, whereas now we just run in with the first 4 or 5 available officers, whether they're donned in extra equipment, helmets, ballistic vests, etc., AR-15, M4, or a shotgun. If they don't have the chance to dawn themselves, they still have to engage. And it's no different than when we respond to other situations, just to drop it down from that a spell, is to say that when we respond to any situation, it's not always welcome because depends on your chief and your captain, let's say, okay, or the lieutenant that you might be working with. They may be a more hands-on person that says, you know what, they're acting disorderly, I don't care, lock them up. If they're being disrespectful to you, put them up against that wall, prone them out, lock them up, let them understand that you're in charge. It's a psychology of dealing with things. However, what I do want to let you understand is that that's not the only psychology. For years, they had something called verbal judo, where we learned how to talk and de-escalate situations. it truly becomes a measure of whether or not that cop actually feels part of the community. And most times that's what it is. You have people who are coming into your community that actually do not know you. And that all they've been taught from the academy is that you're this animal, you're this target, you don't subscribe to order. And understand when that's the psychology that you've been force-fed, that when you actually have that at your disposal, you're gonna come in like what happened into the pink houses of doing a patrol, and now your gun is out, but yet you now have an incident. Why? Because you just want to get home with all 10 fingers and all 10 toes, okay? And you're taught that, you know, these people are against you instead of being for you. So as a community, what's some of the things that you can do? Even as a police officer, I do it when I'm just not in uniform. I'll say, hey, how you doing? Thank you for your service. Thank you for the support in our community. Hey, would you like a cup of coffee? I don't care if they accept the coffee or not. The whole point is me trying to change their psychology about who we actually are. We are actually truly a family-oriented people who know how to be family-oriented and know how to have that type of structure within our lives and within ourselves. So if we do little things like that, eventually people are going to get to know you. They're going to get to know you. They're going to get to know your name. They're going to start calling on you. When you respond to situations, they're going to need you. I'm thinking back now about 15 years ago into my career. A cop shot someone, and I didn't know why, on Brooklyn Avenue and Linden Boulevard. We heard a 1013 call, and this call went over about 20 times. And it was a city call over the city's ban. And you'd think that more cars would have actually come. The only thing that came were 2 ambulances, and the community was in an uproar because of the fact that they weren't getting the person medical treatment fast enough that they figured that they were going to allow them to die on the scene. And had it not been for the fact that I used to get the same community, let me shine lights on your street, because the lighting systems were horrible. Let me tell you about calling 311 and getting better lights in your area. And it was a slow progress. But had it not been for those same interactions and interventions into this community, I wouldn't have been able to stop 50 people on 2 police officers. Okay? These situations happen, so getting to know the cops and letting them get to know you, letting them to get to know your children, and not know that every interaction with a cop doesn't have to be disparate.
Thank you, brother. We need more people in force too. We need more brothers in force.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So with that, if you did have more questions, we will have a question and answer period after all of the speakers. So please write down your questions so we can address more issues. And as we meet here, we can exchange information and talk about other solutions that we have as well. Thank you for your time, brothers and sisters.